Welcome to our very new forest garden in Keighley, and today I'm wanting to have a bit of a chat about perennial onions. When we moved to our new house, we don't have the luxury of a large pantry area anymore to store strings and strings of onions through the winter to keep us going like we used to. So more and more we're moving towards trying to have onions or different types of alliums in the garden to get us through the whole year without having to store too much at all. And this year we actually did a trial of over 20 different types of alliums, and it was really interesting to see how some come up really early in the year. So things like the Babington leeks and the perpetual, they're coming up really in winter when not much else is growing in the garden at all. They're already emerging and you can be cutting and using those, and even growing garlic, so just normal garlic as a perennial in the ground, leaving it in the ground, and sort of cutting and come again as you would with chives. They also come up really early in the year, so you can be eating those in sort of January, February time, and right the way through the year different alliums come up, and whether you're using the leaves or the bulbs or the flowers, we've really managed to find alliums to be available through most of the year. So the allium millennium, which has some really showy flowers, and we thought that would be really great if that one was edible. When we actually tried it, the leaves are sort of really mucilaginous. The flowers are alright in salads, but not as nice as some of the other alliums like allium molly or allium chameleon. So that's one we've ticked off our list. This in our forest garden, it's very much just a temporary healing bed at the moment. There's not much design gone into it, but I've moved some plants from our previous forest garden in our yard, and one of my favourites is this hooker's onion. It hasn't flowered this year. I think it might be because it didn't really like being pot bound and then planted into very poor soil, but that has lovely edible leaves, and the flowers are really popular with bees, so that's one that I will be lifting and dividing and planting clumps around the forest garden. And behind that, one of my other favourites is Welsh onion, and these are seedlings, so these are very small plants. The plants will grow much bigger and have some white globe type flowers, and Welsh onions are really great because they are perennial, they bulk up, so they clump up. You can eat them as like a spring onion, or you can, when they get bigger, you can slice them up and put them in stir fries, and they are evergreen through the winter, so I've seen them absolutely frozen solid and then later in the day thaw out and still look completely fresh, and you can just go and cut them. So in the winter they will get a little bit tougher, so you're wanting to maybe use them for things like soups and stews, but a really valuable allium to have through the winter months. This here is the Egyptian onion, also known as the tree onion or the walking onion. So you can see why it got its name as a tree onion. It looks like it has a big trunk, and then the bulbils at the top. It's called a walking onion because these bulbils here, as the stem matures, it will fall to the ground, and these bulbils will root and form new plants. So it's almost like the onions are walking around your garden as they propagate and spread themselves around. I think these are one of the more attractive of the perennial edible onions, in that they're just really sculptural, and some of them have really huge bulbils, you know, just 3 or 4, and some of them have some flowers which produce seed and a load of smaller bulbils as well. So there's a real variety of ways that they propagate themselves, and these are really great in that you can just snap off the bulbils and you can plant them into the ground, or you can use them a bit like you might do garlic, or you can even use some of the bigger bulbils and you can just use them like you would spring onions, or you can roast them. These walking onions are a cross between a shallot and a Welsh onion. They are allium cross proliferum, and you can see here it does produce a few flowers very similar to the Welsh onion. In the front garden, in this corner, we've got 3 different types of allium. We've got these everlasting onions, and they are a cultivar of a table onion, Allium cepa, and they multiply a bit like shallots do, in that you plant one bulb and they multiply, and you can use them just as you would a normal onion in cooking, or as you can use the leaves like you would spring onions. And next to that, just along this border here, we've got allium molly. This is one of my favourite of the edible flowers, and they are bright yellow, and as you can see there were a lot of flowers on there, just going over to seed now, and this has made a really nice sort of edging border here. You can eat the leaves, and you can also eat the bulbs. And we've also discovered that they supposedly will repel moles in the garden, and so we gave some of these to a friend on their market garden to plant around the edge of their polytunnel to prevent, fingers crossed, moles coming into the garden. So the scent of the bulb growing in the soil is allegedly meant to repel moles. And then next to that as well, we have just chives. This one here has been cut back once. You can see it's sort of grown and flopped over a bit. And this one back here, we've actually cut back twice. And by cutting the chives back after they've flowered, when they start to get a bit of rust on their leaves, it means you get this fresh flush of growth, and so you can have some nice healthy fresh chives to use for more of the year. These Babington leeks, as you can see, get very tall, and these are actually harvested through the winter. So before any of the other alliums have really come up, these emerge from the ground, and you can use them, cut and come again as you would leeks. So they form perennial patches, so they don't need to be replanted every year. If you want to get the bulbils, which is the way that you can propagate them, just like with the walking onions, then you don't cut them and you leave them to grow so that you can get some bulbils and plant out and expand your patch or move them to other areas. You can also eat them. They're sort of very strong, fiery, oniony flavour. So we've used them mixed in a bit like you would make garlic butter with some herbs and spread them on toast. And so you can eat the bulbils as well. But the main reason that you grow these is to eat the leaves in the winter. So it's a really great source of allium in the winter. Unfortunately, with these, the leaves tend to get rust and look quite ugly around about this time of year. So if possible, grow them with something else fairly tall around them, so that by the time the leaves start to look really unattractive, they're hidden by something else. Because actually the flower heads themselves, or the bulbil heads, they're actually really attractive, quite architectural feature in the garden. So in this raised bed, we're growing some potato onions. Botanically, they're the same as shallots, but they have been bred and selected for better storing and larger bulbs. So these ones here have been grown from seed. So our plan here is, you know, when you grow things from seed and they have crossed with each other, then you don't really know what you're going to get. So some are large, some are small. I've even noticed some are red, which is nice. And we'll be assessing these plants to see which ones we want to grow again. So we're trying to find out. The great thing about growing something from seed is that the variation means you can find which ones are doing really well for your site and select those and grow them on for next year, so you know which ones are going to do well for you. So unlike normal onion sets, which you plant when they're small and then the onion swells and gets bigger and that's what you store, these potato onions, just like with shallots, you plant one and then that bulks up and multiplies, and you get a bunch of onions. But as I say, unlike shallots, these are have much better storing and are not as sweet as the shallots. But really, because they're from seed, we're not quite sure what we're going to get. So we've got these here, and each one of these is from a different seed. So I planted these in a cluster of 5 seedlings, and you can see here we've got quite a nice big white one, a slightly smaller red one, and then some that haven't really produced any bulb at all, a bit more like a spring onion. So obviously when we select the ones that we're going to grow on, probably this one here and this one here, then when they form a cluster next year, they will be a cluster of all ones that are identical to these, or all ones that are identical to these. These are all just different because these were all grown from seedlings, from seed. So I will be doing more videos about perennial edibles, forest gardening and our permaculture garden, and so it'd be great if you could follow along and see what we're up to in the future.